Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Daniel, and today in this video we'll be covering my round 5 game in the Northwest Class Championships. So if you watched my round 4 recap, you know I ended off on a bit of a cliffhanger, and this game will actually see if I was able to get my Candidate Master Norm or not. So I was playing the black pieces against the 1900, and let's take a look what happened. d4, knight f6, we go for my King's Indian, pretty standard. And here f3, knight a6, knight c5 is the idea, we already know this. And here I'm not really worried about this capture here, doubling my pawns, because the bishop here on e3, this is white's good bishop. White doesn't want to trade off this bishop for my knight over here, because as you can see, all of white's pawns are mainly on, at least in the center, they're all on light squares. So this bishop is really bad. So if you trade off this bishop, then basically you're giving away your good bishop in the position, and I can simply play knight e8, knight d6 to blockade your pawn. So here bishop c2, bishop d7, here a3, and here I play f5, b4, and here basically, in essence, basically at this point I realize, okay, this is going to be a bit tough. White's counterplay has already broken through here on the queen side. White has the open file, and these two pawns are really menacing in like towards black pretty much. It's quite difficult to play. In fact, the computer already says it's plus 1.5 for white, so not the best for me to try to play this like this position, because I have to bring my knight back to a6, and it's honestly just really passive after queen b1 and f4, which all happen in the game. Bishop f2. My opponent's threatening c5. In all essence, I don't see a way to really defend it. The computer's giving g5, and then this really crazy line, I believe, with let's say c5 and then g4, and then here you trade off all of these pieces. If you take here, then I can actually take here with check, like promote to a rook or a queen, doesn't really matter. And after queen takes, you can take with the rook, and this position is winning for black because I'm up in exchange. That's the only way that the computer suggests is actually viable to try to defend this threat. Even now, after I play the move g5, the computer is now saying it's plus 1.7, so it's not even actually viable. So it's honestly very difficult to defend this position. Here I play knight f6. My idea is that, well, if you play c5, then we will try our best to see what happens. Thankfully, however, here my opponent actually plays the move b5, which immediately lets me back in the game, because here I have knight c5, and I'm basically like blockade, and now I've successfully blockaded white's attack. All of these pawns are not like breaking through. Maybe b6 is a breakthrough, but not right now. And like I've successfully blockaded white's attack. Rook takes, queen takes, bishop takes, pawn takes, and here my opponent plays b6, and here I actually blunder with the move queen a6. Queen a6 I thought was a really clever idea. My idea was after b takes on c7, I play rook c8. And here, if you try to defend the pawn with knight b5, which my opponent did, then after takes, and queen to b6, which all happened in the game. Now this position is actually equal, and the computer is actually saying this is slightly better for black, like plus 0.3, which isn't much, but it's definitely an improvement from being down like plus 2 at some point, like plus 1.7, and this is definitely an improvement. The reason why I think is because this d6 pawn, d5 pawn, although it's passed, it can be blockaded really easily. All my pieces are here to literally blockade it. This pawn is quite weak, in all honesty, and I can probably win it. I have a passed c pawn. I can push that at some point and try to maybe like create some counterplay with it. And in general, it's honestly speaking, like black's pieces are more active than white's in full honesty. Here knight f3, knight c3, I play c4 check. My idea is I want to block off this diagonal for now, and if I play c4 check now, then at least the bishop can't get here, because here if I just directly take, then there is like bishop b3 right now. But I guess I do have c4, but it's just a little bit more complicated. So yeah, instead I play c4 check first, also get tempo on the king, doesn't really harm anyone. In fact, it's actually the best move in the position, king h1. Now I take knight a4. Here I play bishop f8 because I noticed there is maybe this like rook c1 idea to play bishop d3 or bishop b3 and try to win this pawn. But here then I would have bishop to a3 attacking the rook. After the rook slides away, then I can play like knight d7. There's no d6 because simply bishop captures on d6. And here if you play b6, then I can play queen d6 to blockade this pawn. Bring my knight into c5. This honestly looks more playable for black than white. Instead, however, here my opponent plays b6 first. I play queen d6, and here rook a1 was played, rook c1 was played, and here this was my main chance to try to get like a good advantage, like a plus 1.2 advantage, which was playing the move queen a3. Queen a3 I saw in the game, but I didn't like it because after bishop b3, there's this pin here, and then I actually didn't even see that there's c takes on b3. Because after rook takes on c, a queen takes on a4, this is completely winning for black. The idea is that like this pawn is going to break through. I have like queen a2, b2, queen a1. This is just completely winning, very easily winning for black. And like white doesn't have enough time to get counterplay. Rook captures like here, like let's say you play queen to g1, then I simply play b2. This is completely winning. So like white doesn't have enough time to get any counterplay. And queen a3, I support c3. I can bring my knight into d2, into c5. This just looks a lot more playable for black than for white, as I mentioned a lot. So, however, I play queen b4. I saw queen a3, but I didn't like it as much. And after we trade here, bishop b3, c3, here king g1, and here I simply bring my king over, and here after knight d7, I actually agreed to a draw. After knight d7, it seems like I agreed to a draw a bit too early. However, here I analyzed it after the game. I realized that the ideas I came up with from here on out, even though I have like a plus 0.6 advantage right now, the ideas I came up with, also combined with the low time I had, they just give away my advantage. It makes it equal, if not like plus 0.4, 0.5 for my opponent, which isn't really beneficial for me. Because the main idea I saw was after rook a1, like knight c5 check, knight takes, and like bishop takes. Let's say you can't take here because then I have bishop d4 skewering. But here I thought after something like rook a7, it becomes a lot more difficult to play. In fact, the computer just suggests c2, giving away the pawn. Bishop takes on c2. And here rook b8, quite the obscure move. So I realized it's really difficult to actually maintain my advantage because white gets a lot of activity. Knight c5 was the only idea I really saw. Anything else doesn't really make too much sense. I did see this c2 idea, basically like knight c5 takes, rook takes, and if you play something like rook a1, I did see there was this like c2 idea here. The idea is if you play bishop captures on c2, then I have rook c3 check. You have forking the king and the bishop. If you play king d2 to hold on to this, then I can play rook c8 check, picking up this rook. And alternatively, if you move your king somewhere else, then I can simply pick up a bishop for free. So that was the only idea I saw, but that's like really difficult for my opponent to actually fall into, considering they have like 40 minutes to think about everything. And also after knight c5, I saw there was this like king c4 idea, which I didn't really like. But here apparently I have bishop a5, and I'm just completely winning, which I missed. So yeah, unfortunately couldn't get the while we agreed to a draw, so I missed out on my candidate master norm. I still ended up getting a first category norm, which is like the title underneath candidate master that USCF has, which still isn't bad, which is still a good start considering it was my fourth or fifth ever, I believe fourth in-person tournament ever. So still a pretty good like result, 3 out of 5 also, to finish off my fourth ever tournament. So yeah, I believe my updated rating, which I saw today, was 1887. So that's some good progress from 1866. We're gaining rating. And yeah, so that caps off this tournament in Chicago. Honestly speaking, not a bad tournament by any standards. Fourth tournament ever, 3 out of 5 is still a great result. Also considering how well I bounced back from my first round loss, I'm decently happy with myself with this tournament. So yeah, thanks for watching, and hope to see you all when I do recaps for my training games or in the future for my other in-person tournaments. Bye for now.